Hello and welcome back to another episode of Rebooking to Mastery presented by me, Jagan, just a master's student just trying to spread some knowledge out to the rest of the world from books that I've read throughout the past few years and accumulated knowledge and frameworks of thought. So the current book that I'm analyzing in the mix of three books is Grit, and that's the book I'm going to be talking about on this episode. The other two books I'm currently discussing are Think Like a Monk and The 33 Strategies of War by Jay Shetty and Robert Greene respectively. If you'd like to learn more about those, there are some episodes that I've uploaded that are introductions to those books and go a little bit into depth into those books as well, and I will be discussing those on future episodes. But for this episode, I'm going to talk about the book Grit by Angela Duckworth, who is a psychologist and another professor in teaching in college. So the topic I want to discuss today is the idea of grit growing. So something you may have noticed within yourself over the past few years is that some things that would have taken you longer to get yourself started on, some things that you may have given up on earlier, some things that you may not have stuck through for as long as you did right now, you would not have been able to do a few years ago. And that is because overall, grit tends to grow. People's grit tends to go up over time, and it could be due to just the changing times we are in right now. It could just be because of maturity. It could be because of a variety of other factors. And it's important to acknowledge that your grit does end up growing over time. And similarly, your personality also changes with life experiences, and so do circumstances. So it's important to understand that the only constant in this world is change. Meaning that the only thing that will constantly be present or something that will consistently be there is change. So it's important to understand that all of these things around you will change, and so will your own self. And it's important to adapt and improvise to the changing times in order to ensure that not only your passion and perseverance grows, but your knowledge of the world around you also does correspondingly. Because over time we learn and we adapt, and when we look back on our future selves, we think about how immature we were back then and classify ourselves in a specific way, shape, or form. And so, in terms of grit, you can kind of categorize it into four psychological assets that kind of contribute and add to what grit is: interest, practice, purpose, and hope. So I'm going to break down each one. So interest is that it's kind of like the overarching, like almost like an umbrella kind of a thing that surrounds the rest of your grit or what you have to do. So interest kind of and it like surrounds or like covers parts of the entire journey. And obviously in terms of interest, there will be parts of a journey, parts of a destination or a goal people do not like. But the endeavor as a whole interests them. And that is an asset to increasing and maintaining the grit that you have in whatever you're doing. The next thing is practice. Deliberate practice. It's becoming better, even if it is by 0.01% every single day, and being devoted to focused, full-hearted practice that in the end leads to mastery of one's own self. Putting in the effort on a daily basis to ensure that you get one step closer on your journey to your destination. The next thing is purpose. While purpose and interest may seem similar on the surface, interest keeps you hooked into what you're doing, but purpose allows you to see beyond your own self. It is the understanding and interest that our work, what we do as people, matters a lot. It may be not at the same time as everyone else's purpose is realized. Your purpose may be realized far in the future, and it may be very different from what you expected. Or it could be realized in the next set of time, very, very soon. It all just really depends. And a lot of times, your purpose doesn't really end up being the one you thought it was. It ends up being an offshoot of what you thought your purpose was, or something else entirely. And that's another asset of grit. One that is a little more unpredictable than something as consistent as practice or interest. And finally, the last one, the most intangible of them all, is hope. Hope is what allows us to rise to the occasion. It's what allows us to persevere. It's what allows us to, even in our lowest moments, pick ourselves up and continue to go. It is the hope that the other side of the mountain will have the sunrise or the sunset or the beautiful view we need to see or we want to see. It's the idea that this is what we need to do, and it's the belief in something greater than ourselves, fueled by hope. And so, one thing that's important is that hope is not the last stage. Hope is not the last stage of grit. It is every stage. Every stage is full of hope. It is full of mystery. And it is full of high expectations and optimism or realism, fueled by something as intangible as hope. Because that, more than the other three, are what really fuel us in the long run. Because interest can wane, practice can disappear, and purpose can be misaligned, or misconstrued, or even lost. But hope, as long as you hold on to it, will always push you toward passion, perseverance, and grit. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of Grit on Rebooking to Mastery. And if you'd like to hear more content, drop me a follow on Rebooking to Mastery on Instagram and TikTok. And if you'd like to hear more content from this podcast, feel free to drop me a follow. Thank you, and see you guys next time.